In the beginning, before there was time, before the first star shone in the vast emptiness, before any breath of life existed, there was only God. He was eternal, infinite, sovereign. The universe had yet to take form. The earth was lifeless, covered by deep darkness. Absolute silence reigned. Then the voice of the Creator broke the void.
"Let there be light."
And light appeared, driving out the darkness and bringing order to chaos. God saw that it was good and separated it from the darkness, calling the light day and the darkness night. Thus the first day was made. In the following days, God shaped the heavens and the earth, separating the waters, establishing the continents, and covering the land with lush vegetation. He created the lights in the firmament, the sun to govern the day, and the moon and stars to illuminate the night. The sea was filled with living creatures, and the skies teemed with birds. Land animals appeared, each according to its kind. Creation was taking shape, perfect and beautiful, but it still lacked the final touch, someone who would reflect God's very image. And then the Lord, satisfied with all he had made, prepared for his masterpiece. Then God said,
"Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness."
With his own hands, the Lord formed man from the dust of the earth. With divine care, he shaped every detail and, leaning over him, breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Thus, Adam became a living being, the first to bear the mark of the Creator. God placed him in the Garden of Eden, a place of indescribable beauty, where crystal-clear rivers flowed and fruit-bearing trees provided abundant food. Adam was given authority over all creation and the responsibility to tend the garden. He named the animals and observed their natures, but noticed that among all the creatures, there was none like him. Then God said,
"It is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him."
The Lord caused Adam to fall into a deep sleep, and from his rib formed the woman. When he awoke, Adam saw Eve for the first time, and overwhelmed with joy declared,
"This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh."
Together, they lived in harmony, reflecting the perfect work of God's hands. Eden was a reflection of divine perfection. Lush trees stretched their branches, laden with succulent fruit, and crystal-clear rivers flowed through the fertile land, nourishing creation. The aroma of flowers mixed with the gentle breeze, and the animals coexisted in perfect peace. Adam and Eve lived in this paradise without worries, free from pain or suffering. They walked side by side with God, hearing his voice in the cool of the day. Nothing was lacking, and the Creator's presence was their greatest joy. In the middle of the garden, two trees stood out, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God gave them one command:
"You may eat freely from any tree in the garden, but not from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. On the day you eat from it, you will surely die."
Adam and Eve listened, but time would test their obedience. In the freshness of the morning, Eve walked through the garden, admiring creation. The golden rays of the sun filtered through the leaves, and the singing of birds filled the air. But that day, something different happened. A serpent, the shrewdest of all animals, approached and with a soft voice asked,
"Did God really say that you must not eat from any tree in the garden?"
Eve, surprised to hear the creature speak, replied,
"We may eat from the fruit of the trees in the garden. Only from the tree in the middle of Eden did God say we must not eat or touch it, lest we die."
The serpent smiled and whispered,
"You will certainly not die. God knows that on the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like him, knowing good and evil."
Eve looked at the tree. The fruit seemed so good, so desirable for gaining wisdom. A doubt was born in her heart. What if God was hiding something wonderful from them? Her gaze hesitated, but temptation had already taken root. Eve reached out and plucked the fruit. For a moment, she hesitated, but the serpent's promise echoed in her mind. She brought it to her lips and took the first bite. The taste was sweet, but something deep and irreversible had changed within her. She looked at Adam, who watched in silence. Without a word, Eve offered him the fruit. He saw the different glow in her eyes, and without questioning, ate as well. In that instant, innocence vanished. Their eyes were opened, but not to divine wisdom, rather to shame. For the first time, they realized they were naked. A deep unease gripped their hearts, and the peace they once knew was replaced by a burden they had never felt before. They hurried to sew fig leaves together to cover their bodies, but nothing could hide the guilt that now consumed them. Then in the evening, they heard the familiar sound of God's footsteps in the garden. But this time, instead of running to him, they hid among the trees. Something was broken, something they could never restore by their own strength. The Lord's voice echoed through the garden.
Adam, where are you?
The man's heart pounded. He had never feared God before, but now the weight of guilt made him tremble. Slowly stepping out of his hiding place, he answered,
I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid.
God looked at him and asked,
Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat from?
Adam lowered his head, shame burning in his chest. He pointed to Eve and said,
The woman you gave me as a companion, she gave me the fruit, and I ate it.
God turned to Eve.
What have you done?
Eve, distressed, replied,
The serpent deceived me, and I ate.
The Lord then turned to the serpent and declared,
Because you have done this, you are cursed above all animals. You will crawl on your belly and eat dust all the days of your life.
There, before his ashamed children, God pronounced judgment upon all creation. The Lord's gaze rested on Eve, and his voice was firm.
I will greatly increase your pain in childbirth. With suffering, you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you.
Eve lowered her head, feeling the weight of the sentence. Then God turned to Adam.
Because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree I commanded you not to eat from, the ground is cursed because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat from it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles, and by the sweat of your brow you will eat your bread until you return to the dust. For from dust you were formed, and to dust you will return.
Eden, once a refuge of peace, now felt different. Pain, hard labor, and death had entered the world. Nothing would ever be the same. Adam and Eve remained silent, feeling the weight of what they had lost. But even in judgment, God showed mercy. He clothed them with garments of animal skin, covering their nakedness, a sign that sin required a sacrifice. Then the Lord said,
The man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. Now, he must not reach out his hand and take from the tree of life, lest he live forever.
With sorrow, Adam and Eve were expelled from Eden. Cherubim and a flaming sword guarded the entrance. Paradise was left behind. As Adam and Eve walked away from Eden, the pain of separation consumed them. What was once their home was now inaccessible. Yet God had not abandoned them. Before declaring them guilty, he had made a promise.
From the woman's offspring will come one who will crush the serpent's head.
It was a glimpse of hope. In the future, a Redeemer would come to restore what had been lost. Though the world was now marked by pain and toil, God was still present. His grace would go with them, and the promise of redemption would never be forgotten.